on Saturday, June the 8th, 2002, a year after missionaries Martin and Grace were kidnapped by rebels, government commandos ambushed the terrorists attempting to free them. Now, tragically, in a 2-hour exchange of gunfire, Martin and Grace, well, they experienced some bad times. Martin was killed, and Grace suffered a gunshot wound in her leg. She survived because her husband's lifeless body rolled over on top of her. Her captors could not tell if she was dead or alive. Returning home to her 3 children in Kansas, Grace was indescribably grateful for being set free, but she was aware that her release had not been without a cost: the death of her husband. Ephesians 2:1 says, "As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world, and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. When you were unsaved, you were dead." Oh, you were physically alive, but you were dead spiritually. A dead person finds themselves unable to communicate with others. The spiritually dead are unable to communicate with God. Sin puts up a barrier, making a living relationship with God impossible. Unbelievers without Christ are physically living in a spiritually dead state as they are living in sin. And to sin means to miss the mark. Now, that's what you were doing without Christ. You missed the mark. You followed Satan, the present ruler of this world. You followed the way of the world, living a sinful lifestyle just like other unbelievers. Verse 3, all of us who lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts, and like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. That's what Ephesians says. When you were lost, you lived out your life pursuing and satisfying the cravings of your flesh. Your sinful actions reflected your perverted thinking. And as you lived out an ungodly lifestyle, you were on the brink of experiencing the wrath of God. But something happened. Guess what? A big change. Verse 4. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in transgressions. It is by grace you have been saved. Now God loved you so much that he sent his only son, Jesus, to die that you might live. And when you trusted in Jesus as your Savior, you experienced undeserved kindness. And God did 3 further things for you. First, God made you alive with Christ. Now you can talk to God and he talks back. You have a living relationship with the living Lord. What a big change. Secondly, God raised you up with Christ. That means you now have overcoming resurrection power. That power is living in you. You now have a new set of values. And raised with Christ, you have your mind set on things above. God has made it possible for you to overcome sin and live a righteous life. Now that's a big change. And number 3, God seated you in heavenly realms with Christ. You have been lifted up to a higher place. That means you now enjoy a new position. You don't belong to this world. You have citizenship in heaven. And that's a big change. When Martin was killed, he made it possible that his wife could live. Christ did that for you by dying on the cross. You once were dead. I'm going to say it again, but now you are alive in God. For 45 years, Pat Summerall's voice, it spelled football. He anchored CBS and Fox NFL Sports. He broadcast 16 Super Bowls. Pat was the only child whose parents divorced before he was born. It left him feeling empty and alone, and he became an alcoholic. He lived from drink to drink as his body broke down. And during the 1994 Masters tournament, he faced up. He said, "I've been getting sick a lot, throwing up blood. And I got sick at 4 a.m. He looked in the mirror, saw what a terrible sight he was, and said, "This isn't how I want to live." So Pat spent 33 days in the Betty Ford Center in Palm Springs, California. Now this helped alleviate his alcohol problems, but it did not address his spiritual vacuum. And then he bumped into Tom Landry, his old football coach from his days when he was a star kicker. Landry explained that Pat's spiritual need, what it was all about, and he connected him with Dallas Cowboys chaplain, a man by the name of John Weber. Pat's life through that exchange was transformed, and he was baptized in water at the age of 69 years old. When Pat lived following the ways of the world and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, he appeared to be the life of every party with a drink in his hand. But I want to tell you this, Pat was dead. But when he encountered Jesus Christ, he experienced life, real life. And get this, Pat experienced a big change. Have you experienced that big change? Maybe you're dead. You need to come alive. Reach out to God right now.